What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. My name's Howard Bender. I'm your host. With me, of course, the other host, Craig Mish. It's Friday, baby. And you know what Friday means. We got college games coming up tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff to talk about here. Super Bowl odds. Lots of college football next week as well. We'll be touching on that on Thursday. On Tuesday for sure at the live stream, but yeah, Thursday and Friday we got some games as well. Craig, how you doing?
I'm so excited. Tomorrow's the big game. I don't even think I should be allowed to pick this game. This is the only thing I root for are the Gators, and they're opening up the college football season tomorrow. I'm so excited for that. And look, obviously, you never know what can happen in a game, and when your favorite team, and that's the only team that I root for, is such a big favorite, it could set you up potentially for a disappointment, but you got to feel really confident when your team is 7.5 point favorite and they're not even at home and it's on a neutral site. So I think that most people feel Florida could win this game, and I'm excited for it, certainly. And then, of course, here on the live streams, as a lot of people know, and people don't see behind the scenes, Howard and I officially are signed up for the Super Contest, so in 2 weeks we'll have our picks there. And in addition to that, we are signed up. We are signed up for the Golden Nugget contest as well. So all season long, just like you saw last year on Wager Alarm and Fantasy Alarm, the cool thing about it is whether we do good or we do bad, we post those tickets. We'll show you who we got, and on our Friday live streams when we pick our college football games, we'll already have our college picks made. So man, I've texted you and told you off camera and stuff. I can't wait for this. And yeah, this weekend is a little bit of an appetizer. Normally we get some more college games, but I got to tell you, watching the NFL preseason in week 3 really has me fired up for some college football, because the NFL preseason this year more than ever has been an absolute disaster. No one is playing. There's you hear analysts saying, Howard, you can get an edge by looking at the team that has a good backup quarterback with some competition there because maybe they'll do well. I mean, it has been a nightmare. No one is playing in the preseason, and to me, the days of even considering betting preseason, Howard, they are over, man. It's just done. You are literally flipping a coin at this point. It is almost the equivalent of betting on spring training baseball. You are just so much better served saving your money, watching streams like ours or others, and betting on the individual games or betting futures, betting win totals at the end of the season. Why on earth would you even try to predict what's going to happen in these games? And even if you win, you feel good about it? Like, no. Oh, yeah, congratulations. I picked the Ravens last night against Philly. Yeah, awesome.
I'll tell you what the funny thing about it is, and this is because of, from Fantasy Alarm and the daily fantasy sites. And I've never, ever, and I've said this to subscribers on a regular basis, don't play preseason DFS. And, there's like a new free roll for, a bunch of beginners. And it's okay,
free. Yeah.
Free roll. Yeah, that's one thing.
Right,
but
that's
when
it.
People start putting their hard-earned money into the DFS lineups, and they're setting a lineup, and they're like, well, Giants against Cincinnati, they're not going to play Eli Manning, so Daniel Jones is probably going to be in there and slinging the rock. To who? That's just...
And even this week, even those guys aren't even playing. They're not... I mean, Philadelphia didn't play any of their players.
Well, listen, we've seen this, though. We've seen this over the years.
Not like this. Week 3?
No. Well, yeah, because what happened was years ago when Andy Reid... was it Donovan McNabb who got hurt in the preseason, or somebody got hurt in the preseason, and Andy Reid went nuts. And he was like, I'm never playing anybody else again in week 4 of the preseason. And it slowly trickled away. Last year, Sean McVay for the Rams didn't play a single starter in the preseason.
Right.
Not a single starter. Said he's not tipping his hand to anybody. And therefore, here are my backups. These are the guys who are fighting for jobs. And that's it. And every team now, let's face it, when Sean McVay speaks, he's like better than E.F. Hutton. Everybody's like, oh, well, if Sean McVay's doing that, then we got to do that too. Boom,
yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, and even worse, I think, for fans, especially, they made a big deal about Green Bay and Oakland going to Canada to play. And those tickets were really expensive. Remember, there are Packer fans all over the country and outside.
Oh, the people of Winnipeg are super psyched right now.
And Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Packers, right before the game started on the broadcast, announced that none of the players are playing, and they're just going to try and play for a short field, which means run, done. Look, We're all excited for the regular season. Once it comes, it'll be a completely different story.
Sure.
But we still have 3 weeks until then. So why not get involved and why not get excited about college football? The game is great. The games are always very exciting. You have so many things that you can learn about and get into, and I feel like so many people fall victim to it because they're so into fantasy football. But just think of all of the preparation that, I mean, look, we make fun about doing it in June and July. Think of the preparation, how people were talking 3 weeks ago. Oh, but once the preseason starts, that's when we're going to get a real good look. It has been a complete waste of a month. You could have prepared for betting on all these college football games. The lines have been out for months. So anyway, tonight here, what we're going to do is we'll take a quick look at those 2 games tomorrow. We'll take a look at some games on Thursday. There's a couple of injuries also that I want to go over in college football because, as many of you know, win totals aren't on a sliding scale in general. Once you bet on a win total, either in college or pro, that's it. So this is you kind of have to get in now over the next week in college, and you have 2 weeks until the NFL.
All right, so let's get to it right now. Let's start off with tomorrow's game. I know it's going to be a problem for you.
It's a problem.
Gators minus 7.5 over Miami. We've talked about the fact that Miami's, new coach. It's a whole different ball game for the U. It is on a neutral site. I mean, the hook is the problem for me.
It shouldn't be a problem for you. You'll be all right.
Are you sure? You just take the Gators and that's it?
Take the Gators in this game.
Is this a lock? Is this Mish lock?
No, I wouldn't say that. They'll be when I go out on a limb like that, you know that I feel I don't want to let my passion, my heart get in the way of my head on this one, but. Look, a freshman quarterback who didn't look good when he played last year, only found out he got the job 2 weeks ago, a brand new coach. I think the University of Miami with this new coach is finally going to be on the right track. They've gone through Mark Richt. They went through Randy Shannon. He was a coach. Al Golden. They fired. I think they finally found their guy. But Howard, let's be honest, in any kind of rebuild or any kind of new system, there's going to be growing pains. And this, I think, is the growing pains game for Miami. And I do think that they're running into a team in Florida that has an okay offense, an okay quarterback, an okay running back. But Florida's defense has been one of the best in the SEC. And what is going to happen when this kid is seeing these monsters rolling in at him? I don't think Miami's able to score a lot of points until late in this game, and I would obviously buy a half a point anytime on a 7.5. We've talked about that last year. That was very clear. So I would do that. In terms of the Arizona-Hawaii game, which will happen after, so that'll be a good game for you to watch. I'll be sleeping probably. I think it's a midnight game or 10 p.m. game.
I'm all in on that, baby.
Yeah, Khalil Tate is one of the best players in the country at quarterback. He'll be able to run all over the place, but I would lean toward taking the points in this one and taking Hawaii at home. Strange things at night in college football on weekdays and even weekends sometimes tend to happen. So I don't know if Hawaii wins the game outright, but I would lean toward taking these points. That's 2 touchdowns, and Hawaii is supposed to be one of the better teams in their conference. So, just kind of leans, I think, this week in terms of the games, but one pick would be the Gators. Yeah, I would take the Gators minus the points.
Okay, and I like Hawaii at home. First game of the season, you're at home, you're an improved team, you're expected to do better things. So, I mean, listen, and I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we've also talked about it. Granted, Arizona, warm weather, beautiful. Once you're on the island of Hawaii, it's a different mentality. It's like it's like Manny Machado going from San Diego back down to Miami and bringing all his teammates out to all his old haunts. It's like no. Yeah, I'll take the Marlins. Thank you very much. So for this one here, I'm looking at Hawaii. Yeah, listen, I have no opinion on the Florida one. I know, I don't want to upset you or anything like that by even saying anything about Miami positively.
Yeah, you could though if you felt that way. But yeah, the total is 47 in that game, and then the late game, the total is 73. I like the under probably in both. Also, if I had to guess, opening weekend, I would look. Historically, teams are going to get off to the bat in college a little sluggish, as opposed to the pros where the defense is usually catching up to the offense. So I'll go under on that 47 and under 73.5, but simply just leans on that. But really next Thursday, and we'll be back here for another live stream on Tuesday where we'll take a look at some of the Thursday and Friday games, and then we'll have our picks not only for the Wager Alarm stream, but also for the Golden Nugget contest with college football and pro, and then we'll do our super contest on Friday. But
yeah, I think that's something we should at least let everybody know, that for the Golden Nugget, you need your picks in by Wednesday.
Right.
So if that's the case, then we're going to be making our college picks on Tuesday night's live stream there for the week, right?
I mean, I think that we'll probably give an indication, but I think Friday we'll come back and let everybody know.
You don't want to fully commit.
We gotta run right down to the deadline on that Wednesday. I mean,
that's early. Run it down to the deadline
to get picks in. Yeah. I wonder if we don't pick the games for Thursday or Friday, if you could do them Saturday. Honestly, full transparency, I've never done the college football contest. This is the first time I've done it before. Super contest, I'm on years and years of doing it, but I appreciate you wanting to do that with me this year, so I think that'll be great. Anyway,
sort of think it's my pleasure, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
It's my pleasure. It's both our money. UCLA at Cincinnati. Cincinnati next Thursday night at home. The total is 60 in that game. And we'll talk more about this a little bit next week, but just to give you a little bit of a preview as to what you can expect to see on future live streams all season long, I'll give you a little bit of an idea. The Bearcats beat UCLA in UCLA last year. And this season, Cincinnati, they still have a ton at the skill positions, but they lost 3 offensive linemen. In terms of being at home and that East Coast, West Coast thing, Howard, that's a factor when you played the week before. Right. But again, just like the Hawaii situation, UCLA goes to Cincinnati a couple days in advance, and they're totally cool. So I don't think that there's a huge advantage for Cincinnati there. So I think that for me, my lean would be UCLA. I was very bullish on them going over their total at the beginning of the season. They have some of the most returning starters in all of college football, and Josh Kelly is their running back, and it looks like he's healthy and ready to go. So I will lean toward UCLA and lean toward taking the points. And then obviously next Tuesday when we come on, we'll talk more about that game. Okay.
All right. Moving on over then. You're looking at Utah, BYU. Utah, this was the running back that you that you love from there, Zach Moss.
Yeah, Moss. Yeah, Utah is one of the top 10 teams in the country. There are some people that feel that they could end up in the Final Four at the end, and they're ranked high enough right now that if they go undefeated, I think that they would be there. So here's kind of the breakdown. Now, look, you don't live in Utah. I don't live in Utah. Honestly, I've never been to Utah, okay? But this is like when BYU plays Utah, this is the equivalent of when Miami would play Florida State, or Miami plays Florida, Florida plays Florida State. This is the Giants and the Dodgers playing each other, okay? This is what this is. These are two teams in the same state. They're the two big schools. But the problem is that Utah has beaten BYU 8 years in a row. Utah's beaten BYU 8 years in a row. That's a long time. But I will say this in defense of BYU, out of the last 8 games, 7 of the last 8 have come down to the final possession in the game. So Utah's been able to basically pull it out late. So as I look at it, at least early on, and we'll get into it more next week, the total is 48. And I think that both teams can run. Utah can play great defense. And there was another interesting note that I found that both teams have new kicker and new punter this year. And so in games where there's long field goals that are missed, again, that would drive that total down. Mm-hmm. So I would lean a little toward the under 48 because I don't think either team is going to score that much. And I know that Utah's defense is good. And I know that Utah's going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball a lot with Moss. So I'll lean under 48 for this game. Not a real strong opinion on the side because I think I just illustrated Utah could win again and only win by 3. I mean, they've won 8. They've won 8 in a row, and it's come down to the last possession of the game. You know why? It's rivalry, Howard. And for those people who don't know, when it comes to wagering and betting and understanding what college rivalries are, this is how you break it down. Sure, on Utah and BYU, they're going to have 60 kids, and 35 of them are going to be from the state of Utah. So Howard, these kids have seen each other and played against each other all throughout high school.
All throughout, yeah.
They know each other. They know each other. This is the hardest they're gonna play all season long. They see their friends playing on the other side of the field. This is why these games are always close in football, these rivalry games. So I would lean toward that too. I think Utah can go on the road and win. But, man, they're so hyped to be 5-point favorites on the road this year. So I'm just going to lean toward the under at this point, under 48 points.
Oh, okay. Final game now. FIU at Tulane. You got to go to Florida International here. What's up? On the
FIU.
road here. Tulane, a 2-point favorite at home. 2 points at home,
Yeah.
dude.
You
That's
know what?
Terrible.
FIU burned us a bunch last year. FAU was good to us. FIU burned us a little bit when we were on them or against them. So FIU, Florida International University, this is around the Miami area. It's in South Florida. Butch Davis is the head coach of FIU, and they were dead last year in the conference in tackles for loss. They couldn't run at all, so they had a problem in the backfield. Tulane can throw, but they are very prone to making a lot of mistakes, a lot of interceptions, a lot of fumbles. They just kind of play this wide open offense, and that cost them, at least at the beginning of last year. But in the midway point of last year, Tulane replaced their quarterback with about 6 games to go, and they replaced him with a kid named Justin McMillan. He transferred from LSU, and obviously if he comes from LSU, he's got to be a very highly recruited player, but he wasn't going to be able to crack their starting lineup in terms of quarterback. So Tulane, 15 minutes away from LSU, says, come play for us. He plays in the same state. He comes in. They finish the season 5-1. And the only loss Tulane had at the end of the season was to Houston. And Houston, of course, is a very good team. So the spread looks a little wrong for me. I think that Tulane should be a little bit of a bigger favorite in this one at home. Right now, it seems like it's only 2. So they're a slight favorite in this, which makes me scratch my head and wonder why. Because it looks like on paper Tulane is the better team. They also finished the season 5-1. That is just huge for me going into the next year, because this is not like free agency in the NFL. If you finish the season 5-1 and you didn't lose a lot from last year, you would expect to be good the following year. So I think that Tulane opens up the season with a win against FIU. So this would be a -2. The other thing that you could do is, if you're afraid of the 1 point, you could take the money line, which is about -130, 140, and laying no points whatsoever. So Tulane would be the lean for me. And then again, as we dive back in next Tuesday, we'll see where the lines are and kind of what happens there. But there's a lot of other games on Thursday. Those are at least the games that are easiest to focus on because they're main teams and the spreads are out. There are also some games next Friday night in college football. But for the purposes of doing a 30-minute, 40-minute live stream, those are the 3 games that if you're taking a look at next week, you can expect, I think, to see 3 competitive games next week.
Right on, and we'll break those down again on Tuesday night. Now, you were talking earlier about a couple of injuries in college football. One of the things that you've learned over the years is that when it's the starting quarterback, then things really kind of shift around. But are we losing any starting quarterbacks here? We're losing other guys.
Yeah, 2 injuries that were named this week. And so this is more for your week 1 games and also your season-long college totals. Kansas State's and again, I don't know every name of every player in college football, but I do read the injury reports. And so when I see a significant injury, that's something that I'll look at. But the Kansas State Wildcats this week, they announced that their starting fullback is out for the season. He got hurt in practice, so at a senior. So the ability for Kansas State to run the ball definitely goes down a little bit. Again, that's just something to circle if things don't go well at the beginning of the season for K-State. You'll remember that we brought it up here. And from what I read, at least, a very key player in their offense and a good pass protector as well. And also the other injury, there's 2 more, but one is a more significant one. The University of Virginia, over the course of the last month, has now lost both of their starting cornerbacks to injury. The latest is Darius Bratton, who was a potential all-conference kid in the ACC. So just imagine that in college, your left corner and your right corner are both done. So I don't know how you respond from that in college at all. In the NFL, it's like next man up. There's all these very talented kids, but not so much at the college level. So keep an eye on Virginia and keep an eye on their defense, maybe giving up a lot of points early on this season because that coaches know that, and they're going to attack that as well. And in terms of Nebraska, not a major injury, but I believe it was on Saturday or Sunday at practice, their top backup offensive lineman who plays left tackle and right tackle also was hurt, and he's going to be out for the year as well. So not a hugely significant one there, but if down the line you notice that one of Nebraska's offensive linemen gets hurt, their best guy that would come in is now out for the year too. So 2 really, I think, significant type injuries, and the third one would just be something to monitor as the season goes along because Martinez, the quarterback on Nebraska, this kid runs like wild, and he's going to need as many offensive linemen to run with him all season long. So just something to keep an eye on. Leaning toward, some under totals would be Kansas State, if that's the way you feel about that. Obviously, Virginia on some overs with the points and maybe under on the win total.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, Nebraska injury, not significant now, but could be in a couple weeks. We'll see. So those were the ones that showed up for me with injuries that in my research this week that pointed out in a big way to me.
All right. Well, there you go. That's going to do it for our college coverage today. Now, one of the things that we missed on one of the old live streams, at least on Fridays, Craig, was a little bit of NFL action. Super Bowl futures. Now, you and I were talking before the show actually started here. And as opposed to looking at just straight up money lines on teams to make the playoff, teams to make the Super Bowl or to win the Super Bowl, you actually paired together a couple of interesting matchups here. So let's tell everybody about it.
Yeah, I think that, look, just taking a team to win the Super Bowl, there's nothing wrong with it. The other thing that you always have to keep in mind is that when your team gets to the Super Bowl, that you've won the bet, because at that point, provided that the spread is not huge, you can always middle your bet. So if, for example, if you bet $500 on the Rams last year to win the Super Bowl at 8-1 or whatever it was, you could take $1,000 and bet New England on the money line just to win the Super Bowl outright. And so you ended up losing $3,000 on your bet because the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl, but you picked up at least $1,000 with New England winning. And that's called hedging, and that's part of this. Now, for me, what I like to do is I like to try and at least parlay this into what the potential Super Bowl matchups could be. And you can get some pretty good odds almost no matter what matchup you go with, because the NFL is always so much in flux. Obviously, you know who the favorites are, the Kansas City Chiefs, the New England Patriots. No doubt about that. Those teams are going to be right at the top. But the one team that I'm going to pair up this year with a couple of different AFC teams are the Chicago Bears. I'm going to, kind of rely on that defense a little bit. Maybe their offense is a little bit better this year. Second year with Trubisky, the new running back with Montgomery. I know the receivers aren't great, but certainly the defense can carry them. And a lot of times the defensive teams win Super Bowls. So the Bears playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl will get you back 37-1 odds. And the Bears playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl will give you 31-1. And those are kind of the two that I identified for that. Now, as far as taking the Bears straight up to win the Super Bowl, if I was going to do all three propositions and just pick one team to win the Super Bowl, it wouldn't be the Bears. I would take somebody else and kind of hedge myself even with the bets. I may take the Saints at 20-1, something like that. And in the AFC, honestly, it's just so competitive there. I don't see any teams outside of maybe New England, Kansas City.
Oh, come on. You want to say the Texans, dude? They're 40-1. You love them.
Yeah, not going to do that. So that's kind of the way I view it. And the other thing, too, and I will tell you this just from covering the NFL, and this is also a very important part of what could happen, is I would not be surprised, Howard, over the next 7 to 10 days to see some trades, to see some cuts. And especially with these teams that have win totals of 6 and 5 and 4, after a preseason of going out and their coaching staff and the organization decides, hey, look, we just don't have it. Like, what's the point of hanging on to some of these veterans? They could get cut. They could get traded. So keep that in mind. On the lower end, the 4, 5, 6 win teams, it may not be a bad idea to go even under those two, because if they don't surprise and they don't feel like they're very good, what if right before the beginning of the season they trade off more players and decide, let's tank for Tua? So just keep that in mind going into the regular season. So any Super Bowl picks on your part? Any long shots or any teams you like?
I've got a couple of hunches here and there, but really, just for playing around for futures over in the NFC, it's not even great. 18-1 the Cowboys. You got to throw it on there. Zeke or no Zeke, they've got a good solid team. The Panthers at 50-1, only because I know that you hate that pick more than more than me even talking about.
Did Cam Newton play Thursday night? Let me check that here as we
probably not.
Let me see. Cam
probably
Newton.
Not.
How about this, dude? Cam Newton 4 for 6 for 30 yards.
How about pairing up a 50-1 Carolina to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl with Cam Newton as not just the MVP, but then also comeback player of the year? Just push chips all in.
Cam Newton played like 13 games last year, though.
With the shoulder and the surgery and everything like that, he's still
that FanDuel bet is one of the stranger ones. That's why we brought it up on the Laughs live stream. You can go to FanDuel and check out. They have a comeback player of the year odds.
Got a number of guys who played,
and they're guys that played.
Yeah,
I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me, but yeah. So I think the pairing up of the teams to get to the Super Bowl. Look, it's very hard to get to that point. But it's like a jigsaw puzzle a little bit. So
but see, I like that. I like that better than just a straight up. These guys are going in. I mean, how many times do you sit there and you look at it? I mean, you're picking the Bears. I would have to say, what are the odds on Patriots Minnesota? Like what's that going to look like for me?
Let me give you a little strategy here, and hear me out on this. And if I don't make sense, then cut me off because that's very possible. So Bears Patriots 37-1. Right? Let's say hypothetically you put $1,000 on Bears Patriots at 37-1. Now, if I'm not mistaken, my math is bad. If that would happen, you'd win $37,000, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, let's say hypothetically the NFC champion, let's say the AFC championship is New England and they win.
Mm-hmm.
And you win that bet and it's the early game. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then you move to the NFC championship later that night and it's the Bears and Carolina, right? You would you could end up making off that bet $15,000. You'd bet $15,000 on Carolina just to win the game outright. You turned your $1,000 into $15,000, and you didn't even get the right pick. If Carolina ends up winning it, all you have to do is get there. You don't even have to win.
I kind of like that. Kind of makes me feel good.
If it's the Bears in Carolina. Meanwhile, it'll be, what year Arizona had. Howard, wow, no one saw that. Kyler Murray. It's amazing.
Unbelievable. Did you see the Redskins doing that this year? Not at all.
Washington. You almost made me throw up there for a second.
Right.
So anyway, there's different ways to hedge these things, and that's what makes this so much fun. When you think about that, no one's going to take $1,000 to do this, but you take $100 to win $3,700. And then you get to the end, and let's say the opposite. Bears play Minnesota, Bears win. Patriots are playing Kansas City. In the night game to go to the Super Bowl, you put $1,500 on Kansas City. Kansas City wins, you win $1,500. If Patriots win, you win $3,700. So this isn't always about getting it exactly right. It's getting yourself in a position to get it right. And by the way, there's now a website out there. I don't want to give them any free publicity, but there is a website out there that you can actually sell your proposition bets to before they.
Oh yeah, you were saying that before, just in case.
Yeah, you could sell them. You tell them, hey, here's the ticket that I got. They'll buy it from you, not for the winning amount, but for something more than what you have, and they'll take the chance on it winning, which is pretty cool too. So.
Like bringing your ticket to a pawn shop.
That's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
I don't know. I'll give you a guitar. I'll give you this guitar.
I'll give you $100 for this thing.
I got this little VCR tape. You put it in here. You hit play. It works great. But anyway, so yeah, I'm looking forward to Tuesday when we come back. We'll certainly have a lot to talk about. We'll have hopefully the Gators winning, and then we'll move on to our first week in college football. We'll have games Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I would assume that you and I will be doing a lot of talking and texting over these college football games coming up next week.
Indeed. All right. Well, there you go, guys. So stick around. Lots more to go. Tuesday night, Craig Mish, Howard Bender. You don't want to miss one moment of it. We'll make some picks. We'll look at some lines. We'll look at some leans. All sorts of fun stuff there. Golden Nugget college football contest for Craig and I. Westgate Super contest for Craig and I.
Got a lot going on here.
Going to be swimming through stacks of gold coins like Scrooge McDuck, baby. That's what we're doing.
Go Gators.
That's what we're doing. Go Gator. I'll even give you a Go Gators.
Thank you. There you go. Go Gators. Sweet.
So that's going to do it for us here at the Wager Alarm live stream. Big thanks to our buddy Matt Sells for producing today. He's Craig Mish. I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.